Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stch'd. My name is Samir Mutreja, and I'm a co-founder in Stitch Integrated Marketing Services. We all know what we are going through in these terrible, terrible times, but we're all trying to find solutions. We went back to the drawing board and said, who are the best people to find us these solutions, or at least give us a hint, or what the path would look like, what the new normal will be. So, is it the people who are the true veterans, who spent eons in various industries, or is it the next generation of leaders? We believe it's the latter, and therefore, my guest today is none other than Siddharth Banerjee. Folks, please welcome my guest, Siddharth Banerjee.
Thank you for having me here, Samir.
Siddharth, we're really excited to have you because I've got loads of stuff to talk to you, and the kind of achievements you've had is not funny. It's amazing. I would like to begin with asking you, what's the new normal? What's the new way to What's the new way we will be able to lead ourselves out of this problem into the new world?
So, Samir, these are indeed unprecedented times. I wish I had a crystal ball, but understanding a little bit from consumer behavior, the world that we live in, which is largely now built on the foundation of digital technology, and the ability of us to understand where we stand, and kind of help the larger community. I think those are three things which we'll have to keep in mind in navigating the so-called new normal. Uh, Three things which might be interesting for us to remember as business people, as marketeers, as brand builders, or even as human beings. I think the first is that there is a general feeling of shock. There is a feeling of breakdown of trust. And so, therefore, we will have to play our role as leaders, as organizations, as institutions to restore some part of that trust, to restore some part of today what people feel is that shock and awe. So that's the first piece. The second is added functionality and the possibility of businesses pivoting to figure out how can they add value back to consumers so that consumers, in that sense, embrace them back in a new normal. What does that mean? Today, there will be many businesses which will not have the benefit of having physical proximity of consumers, where last mile delivery might be a challenge, where it might be difficult for consumers to consume the same product or service with the same amount of no care on your mind, to suddenly being in a situation where people are thinking twice before actually even venturing out of their house. Forget about consuming a service. Something as similar as something as simple as a haircut to something as entertaining as a movie hall. Um, so therefore, I think brands and institutions will have to concentrate on added functionality and literally delivering that value back in more focused ways. And then finally, the piece on leveraging digital technology, I think, is an important one. There are some brands and some organizations which will naturally have a little bit of an advantage. And these are typically industries and businesses which are digitally marketed and digitally consumed, as opposed to the traditional businesses which are physically marketed and physically consumed. So I think understanding of these three pieces will play a part in navigating the so-called new normal.
Okay. So it's basically a fair bit of learnings is what one can bring to the table. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's very difficult to predict for anybody right now where it's going.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
to be successful like you have been, uh, one needs a strong foundation. I obviously know about your foundation at Unilever for 12 years. What were the key learnings from there, and how did you bring those learnings into the rest of the rest of your career?
So, Samir, the first 15 years of my career have been in consumer goods, what is also called as FMCG or CPG. Um, and most of those 15 years, 12 plus years, have been with Unilever. First in India, and then in roles in Asia Pacific, then a global role, and then running marketing for Unilever in Sri Lanka. So a diverse variety of countries, categories, different nationalities, different cultures. So I'm privileged, therefore, to have a host of learnings from the organization. But what truly makes Unilever are the people of Unilever, and I think I've been privileged to learn from some of the best in the business, both as business people and as leaders. So I think that's been a fantastic journey over many years. But three things again that stand out for me, and when I kind of go back and share some of my Unilever learnings, three things that always stand at center point for me. The first is the very clear focus on understanding the consumer, um, and while the consumer adapts, the consumer evolves. I think the focus of any business needs to be very single-mindedly on the consumer. Even now, when we are talking about a lockdown period, a crisis period, it's amazing to see how consumer behavior is adapting and adopting to all the changes that are happening in the environment. And we'll talk a little bit
Sure.
about the changes in consumer behavior, specifically with relevance to the industry that I currently am in. So the first is the very sharp and single-minded focus on the consumer. Um, the second part of that, the second part of my Unilever learning has been about understanding very clearly the value that brands play in the role in the life of those consumers, both in terms of the functional benefit and the emotional benefit. And I think that's something that Unilever does very well, articulates very well, internally debates
Right.
it, and then is able to provide that. And so, therefore, a lot of brands that you've seen, Samir, stand the test of time because they are built on consistently refining the functional value and the emotional value that these brands provide uh, to the consumers. And the third part that has been my constant learning from Unilever is the spirit of evolving yourself and constantly being a student. And that is why many media publications call Unilever as the University of Learning, because I think the focus there is on being on a constant journey of learning with humility, and with the mindset that what has made me successful today might not necessarily work in the future. So I would basically distill down my 12 plus years of Unilever into these three key learning themes that I've had.
I think they are very very relevant learnings for these times specifically. I think it can apply to any business, especially the MSME segments, which are growing and which are also finding themselves on lurch right now. Uh, I think there's a massive learning there, and that's why no
Yeah.
wonder Unilever is an institution. It is. Let me quickly shift gears and come to your Vodafone career. What a fantastic campaign you guys created that time. I think it became an icon. It's kind of a case study for all of us. Uh, how so we all know, and we'll talk a little bit about that era, but more importantly, brand today sort of use the same intelligence, and what can it learn from it today to create? I mean, will it really make a difference if we still create those iconic campaigns, or in this whole digital world it really doesn't matter? It's too distributed, it's too, I need to talk to a different consumer in a different way, and it doesn't really matter whether I have a central idea or not. What do you think about that?
So I think I've had the privilege of leading marketing for Vodafone in India for 3.5 years, and what stands out for me is that the roots of Vodafone are built on simplicity and authenticity, and that has been so evocatively crafted then for the world. A lot of the Vodafone, the fantastic work that you describe of Vodafone, comes also from a fantastic combination of client agency, a legendary partnership with Ogilvy, who have been long-term partners for Vodafone for many years, and so therefore consistently developing icons like the Pug, the Vodafone Pug, the Vodafone Zuzus, and then the lovable couple, Asha and Bala, who kind of took India by storm, and kind
Yes,
of became the face
absolutely.
of the brand. I think I've been privileged to kind of work on all these assets. To your question, Samir, and I guess especially in times like these, there is a functional value that the brand plays. And the functional value in the case of Vodafone, as you know, is telecom services, and so therefore constant connectivity, whether it is voice or data. So I think that promise needs to stand. And therefore, there is this constant focus on capex, and therefore deploying that onto adding more network capacity in a country which is guzzling data, and that guzzling of data, as you know, in these lockdown times has only exponentially increased. So the first is the ability to fulfill the functional promise, but the second part, beyond the functional promise, is also the emotional benefit that the brand adds. And I think for me, Vodafone is a brand that adds joy to people's lives. If you look at
Absolutely.
classic archetypes describes Vodafone as a caregiver brand. Um, and I think that has been the privilege to kind of continue that legacy and that journey for Vodafone in India. And that's what kind of has made me proud to be, a brand steward for Vodafone for many years.
Right. That's I think it was a fabulous, fabulous campaign. It kind of changed the way we all thought. We all sort of. I'm sure it's already a. Is it already a case study in Harvard or not as yet?
Well, it's a case study in many institutions, not exactly at Harvard, but yeah.
Actually, at
Um,
Harvard.
uh, and what I'm very proud about, and I'll kind of spell that, is that it's one partnership of my career that I'm super proud about, which is the ability to kind of work with a team and an assets continuously over many years, and I think that's a legendary
Right.
partnership. The Vodafone Ogilvy combined.
Was team the right team a similarity between Vodafone and Unilever in achieving that success? I mean, did you find that remained a constant in terms of ability to change, ability to learn, like the three principles which you had said earlier? Was that also carried forward to Vodafone? I mean, is this a constant between two successful companies?
I think that's a great question, Samir, because in terms of cultural similarities, where these companies come from, the focus that is placed in terms of talent development, I think there are very common threads there, and therefore both Unilever and Vodafone traditionally have tended to be talent providers to the industry. Um,
All right.
uh, what was the difference in my two stints, longer stint at Unilever and then 3+ years at Vodafone, is that at Vodafone I had the ability and the opportunity to really kind of craft my team, to bring together a team. We were 8 people when we started in the marketing team, and then in 3 years we grew to about 28 people, adding folks who were able to bring Vodafone into what I call Vodafone Marketing 2.0. We kind of strengthened our muscles on social media. We strengthened our muscles on customer relationship management. We strengthened our muscles in terms of looking at segments of telecom consumers, launching offerings for the youth of India, launching offerings for the women segment of our subscribers, and so on and so forth. So I think at Vodafone, I had the opportunity to craft what I call a winning team. We had an informal name for our team. I'd love to share that on this platform. We called ourselves the Red Pirates. And
Okay.
that team continues to be a team, even though many of us are in different organizations today. But I think the bonding of that team continues, whether it is through our WhatsApp group that we have still alive, or whether it is the Zoom calls that we use to kind of communicate with each other in these days.
That's wonderful to know. I would quickly move on to the next big question, which is Facebook, which is very relevant in today's time. You obviously took a plunge into a tech world, which is slightly different than Vodafone and Unilever. The key of this tenure. I mean, I'm sure there's a massive learning for you from there. But is how does our industry, which is experiential and digital, in today's day and age, it's COVID sort of has crippled us. Uh, Facebook, social media has become even more relevant for us today. How do we engage? What can we do as an experiential industry now to provide solutions to various clients? I know traditionally Facebook has been providing various solutions, and they're open to various platforms. Is it what are the just three or four moves we can make aside and go to Facebook or go and partner with, let's say, Instagram or WhatsApp or various social media tools to provide a solution to a customer?
So, Samir, Facebook for me was a massive learning opportunity, a massive ramp in terms of understanding the big tech world, if you may. And I think I have deep respect for what such platforms have been able to do in a very, very short time of, 10, 15 years. And that's been fantastic in terms of implications that it has for us. Specifically to your question, I think there are two or three things that you can look at which might be useful. The first is Facebook, Instagram offer the opportunity to have two-way conversations, real-time, authentic conversations. And that's something that the industry can look at in terms of instant feedback, in terms of possibilities to gather real-time reactions of consumers. So, for example, you can host a watch party on Facebook. You can look at inviting folks onto a page and doing a reveal real time. You can do a Facebook live or an Instagram live, and get audiences together, where it might not be possible in today's circumstances to get them together physically. And the sheer scale of these platforms allow you to do that cost effectively. So that's the first part, which is audiences real time with feedback coming in real time. The second part, and this is perhaps a little bit more relevant in my view, to Instagram. Instagram, as you know, is the home to influencers.
Yes.
It is a platform which is built on shared passions and common interests. There again, I think the fact that Instagram has influencers, and influencers of all varieties, from micro influencers to, of course, the celebrities. This again offers organizations like yours and your industry, Samir, the possibility to give a complete solution, which is almost like a three-way partnership between yourself as an organization, the client, and then a platform like Facebook or Instagram, to give a wrapped package of bringing alive an experience with a voice and a face that a lot of people identify with, in a
Sure.
way
Sure.
that you guys know how to do storytelling for brands. And then the third part, which we have discussed in the past, is the possibility to create, and that might take a little while in coming, but the possibility to create digital experiences through augmented reality, gamification, and the whole area of experiences where consumers sitting inside the drawing room can literally walk into a home or literally drive a car, as it were, with the help of technologies like augmented reality. The reason why I say that it might take a little while in coming is because I haven't yet come across technologies that have successfully done scaling at a cost that might be affordable to clients. And that's something that could be an area of conversation for you to probe further.
So you bring in a very interesting point, which is gamification. This is what you're doing right now, which is not gamification, but you are into gaming. But as an industry, or as a part of this industry, I've been particularly interested in bringing in the technology of gaming into live events online. We believe that there are going to be new avatars of each individual tagged who will be attending concerts, and possibly going to bars together for a smaller event, and attending conferences like that. But I should be able to
Yeah,
express myself beyond that. Now, is
yeah.
this just an imagination, or is anything possible in gamification, and how should we go about it?
So, Samir, I think no, it's not a figment of your imagination. Let me start by that. Um, um, I have progressively, after my first 15 years in CPG, wanted to move closer and closer to the Indian internet ecosystem. And so, therefore, my push towards a Vodafone and then to a Facebook and then currently to gaming has been a result of that desire to kind of be closer and to learn about the Indian internet ecosystem. Um, I think when I look at the world of gaming today, and therefore the principles and learnings that it can offer for gamification, which are principles which can go across many industries, it's fascinating. Consumer behavior today, because of lockdown in a large part of the globe today, there are estimates that 3.5 billion people out of 7.2 billion people are under lockdown. That's 50% of the global population, right? And so, therefore, the consumer behavior that we today see, in that sense, get exaggerated. Behaviors that could have got shaped over time today is happening at a hyper rate of change. Things that would have evolved over time are now evolving absolutely at warp speed. So let me give you a small anecdote and come back to the question that you asked. It was interesting for me to find in these lockdown times that we had the ability to play a game of Ludo on mobile phones, where my wife was playing that game, I was playing that game. So she was playing it on an Android, I was playing it on an Apple platform, the same game. My two daughters were playing, teenagers both. My maid was playing from the kitchen, the same game. So it was a multiplayer game played on our various mobile phones. It was almost like boundaries had dissolved. There was
Wow.
democratization of an experience which hitherto you could not have thought of. Um, and I think to me, that is the potential that a simple technology can have. Um, and of course, these times are very, very interesting because they also afford us to get a peek into how consumer behavior can change. So, therefore, it's not very difficult for us to imagine that if we have a simple technology, it will allow us to create an avatar and virtually attend an event and get a full flavor, the same way that we might have attended the event in a physical way. um,
Right.
there could be a blend of technologies that might be required for it to maybe give us the multi-sensory experience, but I think it's possible and it's not too far away. And that's the reason why
Right.
I brought in the experience of augmented reality, because for a lot of organizations, and my wife is in the leadership development space, and I can tell you that there is a lot of conversation of today talking not about classroom training, but talking about training with a headset on your head, right? So you literally are therefore in the classroom virtually, and you can get a similar kind of a real time experience talking with a professor who could be sitting in some house, but actually real time answering your questions or delivering a specific set of learnings, and therefore
Right.
also the ability to chat real time with other participants in the classroom. So I'm just giving you this example to say that this is already happening. And so, therefore, why can't it happen for the events and experiential industry, where if we find the right insights, what participants really want? As we've spoken in the past, Samir, there is, of course, the physicality of an event. You go there to the event, you meet a few
Yeah.
people. So there is a the warm, fuzzy feeling of meeting people. Can some of the digital experience replicate that? Then, of course, there is the touch and feel aspect of actually feeling the sense of a leather seat in a newly launched car, for example, or
Absolutely.
just holding a mobile phone in your hand, which is the latest
Yeah.
model that might have been launched. So how are you replicating for that in the digital multisensory environment? If we answer some of those questions, then I think some of this is not very far away. I gave you the example of gaming, the Ludo example. I gave you the example of classroom training, where leadership development is already getting disrupted and real time feedback happening, real time connections happening. And so it is also possible to
Yeah.
look at some learnings from these for your industry.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time. This is a very very interesting topic for all of us, and I would love to get into details of what are the next steps. How do we go about it?
Yeah.
And this in our industry, the experiential side, not only our industry actually, even the brand owner, the custodian of the
Yes.
brand today needs how they're
Yes.
going to reach out. What is the
Yes.
next step? And there's a lot happening already, Sid, in this. I mean, we are trying to, not only us, but I'm sure many others are trying to create online retail outlets and so on and so forth. But having said that, I've got another very interesting topic to cover, which is one of my favorite topic, which is your 52 red pills. And this is for everybody to know. I'm just going to repeat this, though everybody I'm sure is already aware, but this is the widely covered and billed by media as the must have book for 2020. Debuted as India's number one Amazon movers and shakers page. It's regularly on top 10 bestsellers list at Cross and WH Smith. And a lot of people in your reviews have described this as sort of TED talks. 52 red pills is equal to 52 TED talks. How did you get this right? What did you and Eka, what did you get in your head to do to write this?
I think it kind of gives us joy to hear some of these words. And we regularly get a lot of messages from people who've kind of read the book. Although I must say that the physical book is better than the Kindle version of it. I just am biased towards physical books. And unfortunately, physical books right now have kind of stopped from a distribution sense because, whether it's airport bookstores or physical bookstores, all is under lockdown. But I think it's been a fascinating journey, first and foremost, for Eka and me to take. So in 2018, we had decided that we would cover 52 topics in 52 weeks. So all across
Right.
2018, we will learn with discipline. And these were areas, so we had just touched 40. And after touching 40, we were like, hey, listen, how can we make our next 40 years more healthy, wealthy, and wise? And at that point in time, Eka was deep into an understanding of ancient wisdom, Indian mythology, a lot of yoga, pranayama. And so, therefore, I was very inspired to know about elements of knowledge that traditionally we just don't learn. So it's almost like the learning is there for the taking, but we don't really absorb that. I went to a school which was modeled on British curriculum. I went to an MBA which was modeled on the US, Ivy League MBA system. I never really had the opportunity to absorb and learn from my own Indian culture. And I think there is a lot in it. And there's one statement that Eka said, Samir, many, many years ago, which continues to inspire me. And the statement is that if it's ever happened, it's in the Mahabharata. If it's ever happened, it's in the Mahabharata. So you can almost look like the Mahabharata as the source code of things which could be like a family dispute, or it could be a leadership challenge, or it could be a disagreement between friends. It's amazing. And again, I've never really kind of taken the time and the intent to study some of our scriptures like that. And I'm quoting the Mahabharata because it is something that we all know, but there are equally relevant texts in science, in medicine, um, in the whole art of mindfulness and meditation. So I think in 2018, therefore, we set ourselves almost like a time bound journey to hyperlearn onto these 52 topics. We also did one more interesting thing, Samir. We tied that up with saying that we would also dig into and hack into the learnings of experts each week. So there was a week on creativity, and I went up to Piyush Pandey and I asked Piyush that Piyush, Eka and I would like to chat up with you for an hour. So maybe come and meet you in the office. So Piyush says, nothing doing. You come to my home. And so that 1 hour becomes 4 hours of discussions. And that was fantastic for us to absorb what makes the man so creative. What are some of the ideas that he can give us on creativity? And similarly, we met many such folks who had done that journey, and we were able to hack into some of their learnings and some of their journeys. This journey for us, we started kind of documenting on social media. That got picked up by press and publications, etc. A lot of interest on that. And so, therefore, next year, which was 2019, several publishing houses approached us for a book deal, and we went with Pan Macmillan. And lo and behold, by the end of 2019, we had the book out. And again, I guess because it was a topic that appealed to a lot of people, the book was very warmly received with a lot of love. And we continue to get a lot of messages and encouragements Samir, for 52 Red Pills. So it's been a very gratifying journey, and we continue to be on it across 2020 as well.
It's fantastic. I think this has been um, it's a great book. There's no doubt about that. It's a great idea more than the book. And to understand the ethos of this coming from Mahabharata, you're absolutely right. I mean, Mahabharata literally covers it all. We just go back to our own history. It's brilliant. So it's been fantastic talking to you, Sid. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Samir.
sparing time. Uh, and thank you so much for being on Stitched with us. Uh, the bigger question I'm going to leave everybody with is that whatever the learnings are out of Stitched, we need to once we put it together, you know, we will continue to meet people like you said, and we are really looking up to you to guide us to the next normal. I know nobody is aware, but we genuinely believe that it's people like you who have not only the ability to, who do not only have a strong grounding, but also have the ability to take these risks in your life. Moving from super brands to then moving into gaming and making sense out of that. I think it's a brilliant thing. So thank you so much. We look forward to hearing you again and again. Thank you so much for being with us on Stitched.
Thank you, Samir. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Siddharth Banerjee. I had a great time talking to him. And at Stitched, we will keep bringing you ideas and people that matter. Do get in touch with us with the email mentioned below me. And look forward to seeing you again and again for future episodes. Thank you.